Well, hello! Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be making just the cutest, sweetest, most colorful little cozy ornaments. These are made out of air dry clay and they're just the perfect thing to paint, especially for beginners if you're just kind of figuring out this dotting hobby. It's great because it's flat, it's small, it is a perfect thing to make, and aren't these just, they have like this cool cozy vibe, kind of like crochet or quilting. They have like just a really handmade feel because they aren't perfect. They are made out of clay, and so they have those little, you know, jagged edges, and they're not exactly like cut out of some kind of plastic with a machine. They are handmade and sweet. I think they would also make cute, you know, gift tags. You could put this on a present, and I think that people would really love this. This is something that they would remember and be able to hang on their tree, and it's just a cool hostess gift, don't you think? Just something to whip up as a hostess gift. But that's what we're gonna make. I'm going to be using these paints. Now the reason I'm using these high viscosity paints is because I want bubbly dots. I want thick bubbly dots, which I will show you what you can get. Here's a good example of, see how that dot just kind of pops up. It's got a texture to it. They are thicker than fluid dots. Fluid acrylics will give you a flat surface, all the way flat. This paint is nice and thick. It has a heavier body, and you can play with it and get cool bubble looking dots. So I'll show you exactly how to mix your paints so that you can get that effect with your dotting tools. And yeah, so the first thing to get started, you're gonna need some air dry clay. This is my favorite. This is Das air dry clay. It's not like Crayola or some of the cheaper air dry clays that are just super brittle and just kind of yucky. This has some kind of like, it looks like fibers in it. So it's lightweight, but it's also very durable. And that's what I like. So you don't have to mix this. It comes pre-mixed. You just roll it out and you cut it out with cookie cutters, right? So here are some cookie cutters that I have from my collection. I think I got these on Amazon, but you can find them anywhere. Cookie cutters are just everywhere. I love a good hexagon shape. I'm just a sucker for it. And I mean, these, you just cut them out, let them dry. It takes about 3 days for them to dry, but then once they're dry and they can accept paint, this is what it looks like. Now, of course, the clay comes in different colors. I got white, but there's also a terracotta and a gray color. So it just really depends on what you're looking for. I like the white because it makes the colors pop a lot better. So once you have them dry, what you do is you just paint them with a base coat. I messed mine up originally because I used chalk paint. I would definitely recommend using a multi-surface paint, just because you can see here, the paint tends to chip. All right, here, chalk paint doesn't adhere to the surface quite as well as multi-surface paint does. So that's the only change that I would do for the next batch. I'm gonna be glossing these with so much varnish that it's gonna be a thick coat, and it won't chip at that point. But that's something to keep in mind. What else do we need to talk about? Now I wanted to try out all of the colors that comes in the Pebeo Studio set. So I just used all of them. And I can tell you there's a really good mix of colors. The ones that I'm using obviously are the Christmas colors. Now for the paints, like I said before, I'm using those Pebeo High Viscosity Studio Acrylics. And on the tubes you can see They give you a symbol that tells you whether or not it is partially transparent, all the way transparent, or if it's a nice opaque color. And if you tend to use darker base coats, you want to stick with the, opaque colors. But in order to get these paints to give you the perfect consistency with this high body paint, you need to mix it with Liquitex Pouring Medium. Now, not all pouring mediums are the same. I have found that this one is the very best. Just something to keep in mind. One of the bonuses that you get with this pouring medium is that it pops bubbles for you, which is so nice. I like that about that. Golden pouring medium does not. It preserves the bubbles, which is great for when you want to do pouring art, but when you want to use it for dotting, you don't want bubbles. So that's a little side tip. Okay, so what we're going to do first is I'm going to show you how you can get your heavy body paint into the right consistency for use with dotting tools. So your first clue that this is a heavy body paint is that it is in a tube. This means it's going to come out like toothpaste. That's the consistency of this. And if you've ever tried to dot with thick paint, you know that when you make a dot, it's going to give you a peak. Kind of like it's showing in this cap. See how it's got that little peak on it? That looks awful when you're trying to dot. So you want a consistency that's going to be nice and smooth and self-leveling. So do you see that paint comes out extremely thick? So when you dot with a paint that's too thick, this is what you're going to get. So you take the paint, you dot with it, and do you see how there's a peak? That just doesn't look good, and it never will settle down. Part of the thing with heavy body paints is that they make it for brush painters or palette knife painters, people that like to have texture in their work. And so we just, as dotting artists, we have to kind of make our own paint. We have to make it bend to the will of our dotting tools. So in order to do that, we're going to use some pouring medium here. I usually tend to go like a 1-to-1 ratio, but it's a feel kind of thing more than anything. So you'll pour some pouring medium into your palette with your paint, and you just mix it up. And this is where it's more of like an art than a science. You have to mix it up until it's the right consistency. So let's see where we're at right now. So you can see that when you pull the paint up, see how it kind of pulls back down? It levels out. Yes, it gives you a peak, but it's going to calm back down. See how it's moving and shifting? That's exactly what you're looking for. If you don't want to have your dots be thick, you can just add more pouring medium and it will calm down faster, but that's approximately what you're looking for right there. Okay, so I have these two hexagon shapes. They've already been base coated and they're ready to be divided. Now, if you don't have any stencils, let me show you how you can divide this using a ruler. So the first thing you want to do is connect all of the corners. And so you take your chalk pencil or watercolor pencil and just line up each of the corners like this. This is going to allow you to find center on your piece. An easier way you can do it is take your 6/12 divider, if you have it, and line it up with each of the corners. And what you want to do is pay attention to the outside edges make sure that the bridge, which is the cutout section on your stencil, is the same distance from the edge of your piece. And then this can you just outline each one of these and you're done. Oh, I forgot. You can also, there. So there's the corner. So there we go. They are now divided that way. I forgot I don't need this one, so I'm going to take that one out. It's chalk, so it'll just come right off. Temporary guidelines. We won't, obviously we won't use these all the way up until the end, but these are divided. Now what we have to do is give ourselves lines so our dots can stay on track. Okay, so once you have your divider lines in place, now it's time to make your horizontal rows. What you want to do is make lines every 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch, whatever you're comfortable with. You just want to make sure that your lines are divided in the same way. So the way to do that is to place one of the lines on your ruler in the center of your ornament and just keep that the same on all of your lines and divide those lines equally, because you're just going to be joining those divisions horizontally like this. Now let's start painting. So excited. Voiceover Rachel here. Just wanted to let you know that you could just use a center dot just like everything else, but I wanted to show you how you can make a hexagon shape using the paint that you have in your center dot. So you load it up, take a tiny tool like your #1 tool or a stylus tool, that's really fine, and then you basically drag that paint along the outside edge of the hexagon shape. And what it'll do is it will just form into a hexagon shape. And because this paint is slow moving, it will eventually settle into a really cool puffy hexagon. Add more paint to let it spread and just wait and watch for the magic. Okay, so for this one, I'm gonna plan on doing green, red, and then green again. So it's going to be different shades of green in this section. And really the trick with dotting a hexagon shape is you want to start with the outside edge of the row and then work your way in towards the center. So right now I'm just going to make small dots on this first row. And then what I want to see is kind of how many dots I can fit on that line. So I can see that I can get 3 dots comfortably in between those 2 end points. All right, so we've got that first row down. Now I'm going to use a different shade of green and a slightly larger tool. So I'm going to move up to #4 and I'm going to grab this lighter green. And again, we're going to start with the divider lines. And you just pay attention to your placement. I mixed this lighter green to be a little bit thinner. So these aren't going to be super puffy dots, but they're still going to have a little bit of height to them. Okay, and now you can see there's a space in between those dots. So I know that this is going to be too big of a tool, so we're working on the orange tool, we need a smaller size, so we're gonna go with red. So in between here, I'm gonna put two, let's see, let's go with the iridescent green dots. See how that fits? Okay, so now I'm gonna do my last green row right here, and I'm thinking probably a size up, so we're gonna do number 3 again. And you just wanna grab a little bit of that green paint, start on the divider lines, always start there first, and then you space out your dots according to that spacing. So I'm just going to, let's see, cut that line in half with 1 dot, and then I can fit 2 dots in between. See how that works? And that is how you would get your spacing. Take it, put a dot right in the center. You can use this dot as an alignment tool just to give you a reference. And then you split that empty space with 2 dots. And there you go. Okay, so now I'm into the next border line, which is going to be red. So we're going to do all red dots in this section, and I'm deciding to go with a larger size, and I'm going to put it right at the edge, kind of right in the center of that divider line, because I want to go around each one of these dots with white. So there has to be enough space around this dot to accommodate for that. And then this is a nice opportunity to really bulk up those dots so you can add more paint. These will end up looking nice and big and shiny. We can do one more. Let's split it up. And then these I'm not going to outline in white. These are just going to be big red dots right in the center. In order to get tiny dots surrounding those red dots, what I need to do is use some fluid white paint. In order to get those dots, super tiny detail dots, I'm going to use this pointed silicone tool. And what this does is just get all the super tiny dots, and we're going to surround those red dots. So what you do is you just take a small amount, just a small amount of paint on the end of your pointed tool. Now we're going to go around the ones that have the space at the top. And there. And then we'll just do that only on the corners. So at this point, I'm going to take, what we're going to look at is the blank sections in between those dots. So what is going to fit in between those dots? That's what we need to figure out. Well, I think if I take you can dry fit your tools. A number 5 will fit. I know I can get 2 dots right on top of each other in that space. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to use the darker shade of red. And we're just going to fill that space like that. Oh, I think I like the way that the colors are showing up on this one. So cute. All right, so now we're gonna do a green border, and I think I'm gonna go with the darker green. I don't think I'm gonna do a border around the corner ones, but we're gonna make them nice and round and bouncy. Really puff them up. Okay, so here is a scenario where we have the hole. So I'm going to place a dot, but it's going to be smaller. I'm not going to attempt to get that larger size, but just so that the color shows up, I'm going to have a small amount of the green. Okay, so now I'm going to dry fit my tool so that it's a smaller size because I want to outline it in the white. And I'm going to place one right in the center, in between those larger green dots. You can use that center red dot as a reference as to where you want it to land. It looks like I have a little bit of paint that's smudged, so I'm just going to wipe it with my silicone tool. We're going to go back over the top. There, all good. And we're going to go around these dots. And then for the rest of it, I came in with more green shades and just fit dots that fit within that space. I went over dots that were already dry with some top dots and just kind of added some detail and dimension and added a nice gold hexagon shape right in the middle. And that was about it. Now, after you've made a bajillion of them, you need to wait until the paint dries completely before you remove all of the chalk guidelines. You can do this with just a damp, wet cloth. Just gently wipe off the chalk lines and make sure that all of those lines have been removed. And then the next step after this is we're going to spray varnish. Whenever I have a ton of things to varnish, I like to use this triple thick gloss glaze. It's in a spray can, so you can really kind of get a whole bunch of varnishing done pretty quickly in this method. If it's just one or two pieces, then I'll just paint the varnish, but this really makes it easy. And you want to go over these ornaments with a thin coat and then let that dry. It dries within a few minutes. And then go over it with another coat and just get it nice and thick and glossy. So this is the last step in the process. This is really fun. This is a design decision. So you get to pick ribbon that will look good with your particular colors that you used for each ornament. And I used different ribbons for different ornaments. I even used hooks with bows. So there's definitely a million different ways that you can do this and just have fun with it. I really like the look of these on the tree. I think it has a real down-home crafty vibe, kind of like quilt blocks or crochet. Let me know what kind of vibes you get from these, and if you made these this year, let me know in the comments. And if you would like to see anything in the new year as far as dotting tutorials, please let me know. I'm taking suggestions. As always, you can meet me at thedottingcenter.com for all of your dot art needs. Thanks again for watching. Happy holidays, everyone. And until next time, bye.